Hey, Startists, it's a brand new year, and we're back.
We're back.
We're pulling back the curtain on our planning process for 2025, our businesses, our lives, and this very podcast.
Let's talk goals, dreams, and the occasional chaos of balancing creative businesses with everything else in life.
What do you mean occasional, Laura? When is life not chaotic?
Hi, this is Laura Lee Griffin.
And this is Nikki May with the Startist Society, inspiring you to stop getting in your own way and start building an art biz and life that you love.
We are artists who believe strongly in the power of community, accountability, following your intuition, taking small, actionable steps, and breaking down the barriers of fear and procrastination that keep you stuck.
Follow along with us on our creative business journey as we encourage you on yours.
So, Nikki, what the heck happened to 2024?
I have no freaking idea. I feel like we just recorded last year's New Year's episode about looking back and looking forward. We both had a lot of crazy things happen in our personal lives, which I feel like we say every year. Mm-hmm. But it forced us to step back a bit from podcasting the last half of the year.
You starting to travel in a bus full time that wasn't always fully functioning, and you're in your bus right now recording for the very first time for this podcast.
Right. So you'll have to forgive us if you hear a little road noise or a train in the background. Buses aren't exactly soundproof. Anyway, the bus is still not fully functioning. And you working a billion hours a week on your day job deadlines.
Yeah, but we're back and we're more excited than ever about the plans we have for 2025. Speaking of plans, we're dedicating this episode to reviewing last year and coaching each other through our goals for the upcoming year in our creative businesses, our personal lives, and this podcast. And we want to break it all down and share the process with you.
All right, let's get started.
So, Nikki, let's start off by looking backwards first and talk about one thing that went really well in 2024 in our personal lives. So I'll start.
Okay.
I took my first real holiday in 4 years and got to travel internationally again. I spent 2 weeks in Europe, in Luxembourg, and then in Spain, visiting Barcelona, which is my new love, and Malaga, Granada, the Alhambra, Marbella, and Estepona with friends. I literally found my sense of adventure again, which is so important.
That is so awesome, Laura. And I was super jealous looking at all your photos, especially of Barcelona. Mm-hmm. If only I could drive my bus there.
That might be a little bit hard. I don't know. Can you get a big raft or
a cruise ship, maybe?
Yep.
A schoolie cruise. I'm going to arrange that.
Nice.
Anyway, so one thing that went really well for me in 2024 was I lost a little bit over 60 pounds.
That is awesome.
Thanks. I've actually lost well over 100 pounds in the last 6 years, but it had stalled for a while, and then I had gained some of it back during COVID times, like pretty much everybody did.
Right.
But in 2024, I lost what I gained and more, and I feel better physically than I have in decades. And wow. I even went on a fun shopping spree with you in Tulsa in October.
I know. I had to twist your arm to get you to go clothes shopping. You were so resistant, but you had such a great time.
I know. I've always hated shopping for clothes because I hated how everything looked and felt and fit. But now it was awesome. I just don't know where I'm going to wear those dresses when I'm like in the desert or in the woods.
You don't need an excuse to wear a dress. You can wear whatever you want in your bus. Well, now let's talk a bit about creative business. What was one thing that went really well for you in 2024, Nikki?
Well, I worked on some really fun and interesting projects, as always, but the biggest thing that I'm proud of in my creative business doesn't really make the most exciting story to tell here, but it's some decisions that I made about the direction that I want to go. Mm-hmm. And, sorry to be vague, but I'm not really ready to announce anything yet.
Okay.
But after decades of just kind of letting my business lead me without much of a plan, I've made some decisions that'll have me taking the reins and doing the leading. So I'll have to be cryptic about it for now, but I'll share more soon. What about you, Laura? What went well for you in 2024 in your business?
Well, I created 5 original paintings in my new collection that they make me ridiculously happy to look at them. I mean, I still need to finish about 5 more before I start pitching the collection to the world.
Well, I am fortunate enough to have seen the new collection in person, and I really love it. And I really can't wait to see more. They're super fun.
They are. They're a little bit quirky. And just to give you like a hint, I'm doing an entire series of different types of animals with sunglasses or eyeglasses, like oversized eyeglasses. I mean, I've got like a chameleon. I've got all kinds of different creatures. And it's just, they just make me smile. Hopefully they'll make other people smile too.
They will for sure. So, Laura, what's an area where you struggled with your creative business last year?
Oh, that's easy. Time. It's really hard to dedicate time to your creative efforts when your day job is eating up 60 plus hours of your time each week. So
something more like 80 plus, it seemed like.
It's a lot. So how about you?
Oh, time. I can totally relate to that one. Time is something that I struggled with a lot too. Not from a day job, but bus life takes up so much of my time.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest struggle was, and let's face it, always has been, focus and procrastination. Even when I find myself with time that I plan to work on my art business, I often find myself unable to focus, jumping around from thing to thing and not making much progress on any of them, or avoiding what I know I need to do to move the business forward and spending a lot of time procrastidrawing, which is my specialty. I mean, it's not completely time wasted because I end up with some really great drawings, but just making the art isn't moving the business side forward, you know?
Procrastinating? I have no idea what you're talking about, Nikki.
Yeah, right?
We've definitely got to practice what we preach, right, Nikki? We won't even talk about the last time that I sent an email to my subscriber list. But I will say that your procrastinating in the past has actually turned into some elements that made it into beautiful projects like your annual calendars and even public art commissions. So definitely not time wasted.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do get a lot of good drawing out of the procrastinating, but there's a whole other side of the business. You got to do marketing at some point, right?
And what's marketing, Nikki?
I don't know. We'll talk about that some other time.
Okay, so let's talk about lessons that we learned from last year and what we want to take into 2025.
All right, you go first.
Well, clearly, I need to set more boundaries in my life and reset my priorities. We'll talk a bit more about this and goals for next year, but the main thing is that I need to allow my brain to be okay with not having everything always wrapped up in a bow in my work life. So, and when I say work life, I mean day job work life, so that I can spend time developing my art business and doing all the creative things that I love.
Are you going to be able to do that? Are you going to be able to go to sleep without everything always completely finished all the time?
I don't know. I mean, it's a work in progress.
For sure. Well, I've learned that I'm really great at coming up with plans for what I want to do in my business and how I want to structure my weeks and time block my days, how I want to get all the things done. But that's the problem, right? All the things.
All the things.
All the things. I frequently tell myself, okay, here's a plan. And despite the fact that you've never been able to suddenly be a person who focuses on all the important things and gets them all done, now it's going to be different. And just because it's on your calendar means you're going to do them all, right? That just sets me up for disappointment. So I need to find a better way, which leads us perfectly into the next thing we want to talk about, which is our words of the year.
So basically, choosing a word of the year is like choosing an intention to guide you throughout the year instead of having a ton of New Year's resolutions that last, I don't know, about a week.
If that.
We talk more about this in episodes number 5 and number 110, including a free word of the year download in episode number 5 if you're having trouble trying to decide what your word of the year should be.
So I've chosen my word of the year to help me with my lesson learned about thinking that I'm going to be able to do all the things just because I feel they need to be done and wrote them in a calendar. So my word of the year for 2025 is habits.
Okay.
We've talked about the importance of creating habits for things you want to do in about 12 different episodes. And even recommended several books about them, especially Atomic Habits and Badass Habits, which we'll link to in the show notes.
Okay.
So anyway, for me, 2025 is going to be all about forming good habits and working on them one at a time rather than trying to do everything all at once. That's the really important thing.
Right.
Like the advice that we give to start one new thing and don't focus on the next until the first ones become a habit.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I have a huge list of things that I want to do regularly, if not daily. I want to read, I want to write, keep a sketchbook, create new things, exercise, and more.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to do all these things every day after not doing them at all is just a recipe for failure, right? So I plan to pick one, focus on doing it regularly until it becomes a habit, and then adding a new one.
But does the word habits inspire you, Nikki?
Well, I don't know if I'd say it inspires me, but it definitely makes sense. And in terms of the idea of the word of the year being a guiding principle instead of necessarily inspirational, I think it makes sense for me.
Well, I think it's also finding the why behind our words of the year and holding on to those things that keep us going when perhaps you find a new habit is, becoming hard to maintain. So, Nikki, what's the why behind your habits?
Bourbon?
Is that your answer for everything, Nikki?
It's my answer when I don't have anything else. What about you, Laura? What's your word of the year?
Okay, so some of my past words of the year have been flow, connection, allow, ease, trust, things like that. So this year I'm choosing the word flourish. And the Webster's definition of flourish is to grow or develop in a healthy or vigorous way, especially as the result of a particularly favorable environment.
Ooh, that sounds good. Flourish is a really good word. So how do you think you can apply it to your business and your life?
Well, to me, it's about surrounding myself in that favorable environment. And if I do that, that'll provide a natural breeding ground for growth in my business, my art, music, offerings, licensing, all the things, and in my personal life with my health and stress management.
Well, and you definitely have a lovely, favorable environment in your new studio in your new house. It was super fun to be in there with you.
It's so cool because now I even have a spot for somebody to paint with me, hang out.
Look at your beautiful backyard while you're working on things.
Yes. It's very exciting to have a dedicated space now.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, Laura, next topic. Let's talk about our goals for Startist Society for 2025. We kind of dropped the ball a bit in 2024 and didn't put out as many episodes as we really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
We never lost the desire to work on it, and we did some planning and we talked about it a lot, but we let everything else in our lives distract us. So what do you want to achieve with the Startist Society in 2025?
Well, first off, I'd love to get back to releasing an episode every 2 weeks, which should be totally doable.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many juicy ideas for episodes that we really think will provide value to you, our Startist community. So we can't wait to get those out there for you. And Nikki, do you want to share some of those episode topics today?
For sure. So we've been planning a few 3 to 4 episode series about topics that you all have been asking about or are just top of mind in the world lately. We're working on a series of episodes all about websites for artists and other creative small businesses, what every artist website needs, choosing the right platform, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got a series about email marketing, something you and I both need to get better at ourselves, right, Laura?
Just a little bit.
Somehow just knowing what to do doesn't get it done. And then there's the topic you just can't get away from these days. Not that I want to, but artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
We've already done an episode just touching on it. Episode 88, Will AI Art Replace Artists? But we have so much more to say about it.
So much more.
So what else do we want to do with the podcast this year, Laura?
Well, I also really want to get back to batching work, which is actually helpful in all areas of my life. But that makes things a little bit more doable when you can batch edit audio, for example, and just dedicate an entire weekend to getting all the post-production stuff complete for several episodes at a time. And that makes the schedule a little bit easier to maintain.
Definitely. We have had a few times where we did big batches of recording, editing, scheduling, and it felt so good to know that we had a lot of content ready to share. But Then we got a little lazy and ended up scrambling for some episodes. So we're good at batching. We just need to get better at batching consistently.
Yeah, we also want to provide more educational and downloadable resources for the Startist community on topics that might keep you stuck or stopped in your tracks. All right, so let's move on to some goals that we want to set for our creative businesses this year, Nikki.
Okay, so although I want to focus more on habits than goals in general, I do have one big goal that I have for the first quarter of 2025, and that is to relaunch my print-on-demand shop.
Okay.
I had a pretty large POD shop on my website, but it was organized poorly, and I had issues with shipping charges because I was using 4 different POD providers, which each added their own shipping, and it got to be a mess.
You had so many things on there. It was like every possible product known to man. You had like, it was cool, but you had like a million products.
Yeah, I mean, I got carried away because they all looked so cool that I just kept adding stuff, and I didn't do it strategically.
Right.
So I closed it down temporarily to restructure, reorganize, and I never really got back to it. I added back a handful of products for this holiday season. Side note and shameless plug, my calendars and journals are still available at nikkimay.com/shop. But anyway, I've decided that I'm going to build a brand new shop for myself on Shopify.
Okay.
I've worked exclusively with WordPress for many, many years, but Shopify is great when selling products is your main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And by building a shop for myself, I'll become familiar with Shopify and possibly add that to my toolbox for my web design business.
Shopify is kind of awesome. I love Shopify, and we're going to talk, more about this in a future episode.
In the website series.
Right. It does cater specifically, for a seamless customer experience. It's so easy to check out on it. It's so easy also to be located on it because they even have a shop app where you can search for something and, your shop could potentially pop up in somebody's search results like a marketplace. So definitely Shopify is a cool way to go if you want to be focused on a product business.
Yeah, you can do a lot of the same things in WordPress too, but it's a little clunkier to build with WooCommerce, which WooCommerce is great and I'll still use it for a lot of different things, but it is clunkier with having to use a lot of different plugins to do what Shopify has just built in.
Yeah, so you can get something to a Shopify level, but you have to build in a lot of those plugins and stuff to do it. So, Nikki, how are you going to get this thing built, this POD website? If you say you want to do this in the next 3 months, what steps do you need to take? And if we break it down into the smaller doable steps, what does that look like for you?
Well, the good news is I've already started.
Oh, nice.
Because my original plan back in September was to have it launched before the holiday season.
How's that going for you?
It went great, Laura. Great.
Okay, wait. So when you say you've already started, does that mean you signed up for Shopify? Or does it mean that you've actually done something with it?
I did sign up for Shopify. But I have already, with the help of my virtual assistant, ChatGPT, broken it down into phases and tasks, and I already have that in ClickUp.
And ClickUp is a project management tool, right?
Right. So I have that all broken down and ready for me to get started.
Well, Nikki, you are the queen of project management tools.
I think you mean the queen of breaking it down in project management tools and then not doing it.
So my question to you is,
how am I actually going to do it?
Yeah. I mean, how are you actually going to do this? If you've got the steps broken down, what's going to inspire you to actually take action?
Well, here's what I'm thinking. So one of the reasons I don't actually get things done after doing all that planning is that I'm trying to do too many things. So I'll break it down and put it in the project management tool and get it all set up and ready to go. And then I'll move on to something else because focus is hard. And I also want to do this. And I also want to do this.
Yeah.
So along with my new plan of building one habit at a time, I'm also going to work on only one initiative at a time.
Okay.
So outside of my client-facing business, I'm just going to only work on one initiative at a time in my own creative business because I probably have 10 different things I want to do with my art career. But the first quarter is going to just be focused on building this POD site.
Well, you're actually going to focus on two things, Nikki, right?
Oh, right. And the podcast. Did I guess right? Did I guess that right?
You did. You did.
Do I get a prize?
You get a gold star.
I'll take it. Does it come with bourbon?
No, sorry. No bourbon.
Wrong answer.
Just a bright, shiny gold star.
Okay, so what about you, Laura? What are some of your goals for 2025?
Well, like you, Nikki, I always have way too many goals. So I get stuck in that same thing where I want to do everything. And it's hard for me to focus on just the one thing. So I'm going to talk about 3 things right now, but I have like 10 of them on the back burner. So
of course,
one of them is to finish and launch my collection of paintings and pitch them for licensing. The second one is to relaunch my email newsletter, if people even remember who I am.
Can I make a suggestion here and say maybe relaunch your newsletter, the first one, before finishing the collection, and you can get that going and tease out your new collection? I mean, that won't take too much time to just do one newsletter and then focus on finishing the collection.
That would actually be smart. Yeah, that would be smart. I mean, the only thing I would say is that a lot of my subscribers are probably past students that I've had. And so
students like to buy art too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I can also, I've been talking about licensing, but I may also be able to use some of this artwork for POD or for, other things to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the third thing is that I am learning professional music production right now.
Awesome.
And my plan is to launch 2 original songs on Spotify and Apple Music, which is the new side of my creative business. So for those that don't know, I've been singing since I was born and I've played piano since I was 3. I own 3 guitars that I can't play at all.
Why 3?
I don't know, because I needed an electric one. Well, one's a ukulele, so it's not really a guitar, but I have...
Ooh, I have one of those that I don't know how to play also.
Oh, great. We can start a band of people who can't play ukulele. But I have an electric guitar I bought in college because I wanted to sound like The Edge from U2. And I had to take it back to the store and say, I think it's broken because it doesn't play the way I would anticipate.
It doesn't play because you actually have to pick it up.
No, anyway, I have that.
It's not a self-playing guitar, Laura.
and well, he has like $10,000 worth of effects behind his guitar, which I didn't realize.
Right.
But then I have an electric acoustic as well. So that's what I'm kind of learning on now. But I really want to be able to make professional music. So of course I edit these podcasts. Talking is a lot easier to edit than music is, and to layer music on top of each other and mix it and master it. All those things that make something sound really great when you hear it on the radio. So I'm learning about how to do that now. And the goal is to launch something, original this year. So that's a big goal.
Awesome. So those are great goals and they should be totally doable.
Oh, and there is one more goal.
Of course there is. And by 1, you mean 10?
And by 1, I mean 10. But
okay, but 1, what's the 1?
1 is that I want to learn to use Teachery from Wandering Aimfully. So Teachery is a online learning platform, kind of like, Teachable or some of these other platforms that exist out there that you can put your classes on, and it has a really nice interface so people can take video courses from you or even text courses from you. And I want to start creating classes on that platform, but I'm not planning on like launching, necessarily personal classes this year on it, but I would like to know how to build it and how to work with it so that when I'm ready to do that and maybe add some of my classes that are on Skillshare over to that platform so I can have 2 methods of earning income with those courses, I think that would be really cool.
Excellent. That sounds great. Okay, Laura, what personal goals do you want to share?
All right. I have 2 big personal goals this year. So the first one is around wellness. And so when I say wellness, I'm going to break this down into sort of physical and mental wellness. Mm-hmm. So for physical wellness, I just started cooking for the first time in my life, Nikki. I mean, I can probably count on like one hand how often I cook in a year normally. Like I do a lot of very light cooking, like pasta and stuff like that, but nothing fancy. Yeah, like nothing fancy,
yeah,
right?
me too. Me too.
And so I really need to get more protein in my diet, I've realized, especially to balance my hormones. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to curb sugar cravings that I was basically born with.
Same.
So right now I'm using something called HelloFresh to ease my way into it. And that's something where they send you like all the ingredients pre-portioned. They give you a little card that has pictures that shows you how to do everything. So you can't really screw it up. I haven't set the house on fire yet, though I did actually thoroughly burn a tray of carrots that I forgot were roasting in the oven.
Oops.
Now, I invested in 3 things for physical wellness this year. I have something called a body pod, which is basically a fancy scale that tells you how close you are to dying. Like,
do you really want to know?
Well, it tells you how much like fat and muscle you have in every appendage of your body, which is just bizarre. And it tells you like my metabolic age, for example, is 7 years older than I actually am.
Oh, yeah. I tried it when I was at your house in October, and we had a great laugh over just how old it said we were.
So the second investment was in something called P-Volve, and that is just an exercise system for functional movement. So when I say functional movement, it's not big cardio stuff. It's like lots of resistance bands and training to build muscle, which is really important for women coming of a certain age. Mm-hmm. And Jennifer Aniston touts it. And yes, I totally got sucked into a Black Friday sale on social media. But I love that it's very easy to store the equipment away. It doesn't take up much room, and you can do it from the comfort of your home without a ton of people staring at you.
Cool.
The third thing is a grounding mat and sheet.
Yeah, what is that?
So there's this whole movement around earthing and grounding. So I don't know how much you've heard about that, Nikki, but we, years ago, we used to spend a lot of time outdoors without our shoes on, like with our feet on the ground. And that's a really healthy thing to do because like the electrons from the core of the earth come up and it grounds, your body and helps with your circulation, with all different types of ailments you might have in your body. And so what's been invented now are products that you can plug into the grounding portion of a plug. So, plugs in the wall, there's usually an extra little prong there that is the grounding thing that connects to a rod that's in the earth.
Unless you actually live in a school bus and you're not connected to the ground. So you may have a 3-prong outlet, but you're not grounded.
You're not grounded. Definitely not grounded with your rubber tires. But what's really cool about it is that they have a sheet and they have a mat. So the mat you can do while you're working at your desk. And the sheet is like a little table runner that goes across your bed. And I use it from a company called Grounding Well. I started using this thing 3 weeks ago, Nikki, and I sleep better than I have in decades. Like, wow. I don't know. It's so weird. I don't know why I dream like really intense dreams every night. If my dog didn't want to get up every 3 hours to pee because he's 17 years old, I would sleep like all the way through the night. But it's really a cool thing. So I highly recommend.
Maybe Gus needs to sleep on the grounding mat.
I think I need to pull him up on the grounding mat for sure. All right. So those are the things I'm doing sort of physically. And then mentally, for mental wellness, I'm looking at instilling more creative time, de-stressing on a regular basis, meditation. And I actually ordered this thing called a sound bed that you lay on and listen to meditations on headphones. And it matches the frequencies so that they go through your body with speakers at the same time. It's very woo-woo.
Yeah.
It hasn't arrived yet, so I'm kind of not sure if somebody just took all my money and is laughing at me. But I'm excited for it to arrive, hopefully in the next month or two, and then I'll report back.
I'm anxious to hear about your woo-woo sound bed.
And then when it comes to my second big goal of the year, it's travel. So I mentioned I got the sense of adventure back when I went to Barcelona and Spain, and I have a big birthday this year, Nikki, and I'm planning a trip with friends from around the world. So I haven't picked the destination yet, but it's going to be epic.
Travel is an awesome way to celebrate big birthdays. When I hit the number you're about to hit, Laura, 7 years ago, I spent 2 months in Mexico and had 6 of my friends come join me for a week.
Nice.
That and the tequila helped ease the pain of turning over a new decade.
Wait. There was no bourbon?
Yes, I cheated on my first love, but when in Mexico.
Okay, Nikki. So, what are your personal goals for 2025?
Well, I did something last month on my birthday that was very out of character for me, but was super fun and made me feel really proud of myself.
Okay.
I'm great at traveling by myself, and I love to go to new cities and explore little shops, restaurants, galleries, museums. But
Mm-hmm.
I've never been one to really do anything like hiking and exploring nature on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I love being outside, but I generally only walk if someone encourages me. And on my own, my chosen destinations tend to be cities and not like national or state parks.
Right.
But I happened to be traveling in Texas last month, and I was going from San Antonio to Marfa, which is a super cool, artsy little town, by the way.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Well, Big Bend National Park is on the way, and so I spent my birthday riding my adorable new Honda Metropolitan scooter through the mountains in Big Bend, stopping and hiking at 5 or 6 different trails along the way.
Oh, nice.
Side note, Laura, when we talk about AI in an upcoming episode, remind me to share how I used ChatGPT as my personal travel agent / tour guide to put together the perfect route for me.
Oh, that's smart. I would never have thought to do that.
It did an amazing job, and when we talk about AI, I'll go into more detail about how I got it to do it.
Okay, cool.
But anyway, I drove about 70 miles through the mountains, and I hiked about 10 miles that day,
Oh my
which to a real
gosh.
hiker might not sound like a lot, but to me it was a lot, even though it was nice to have it broken up by riding in between. But anyway, I did that alone in a huge national park, which is completely out of character for me, a bit scary at times between getting off some trails and the wind blowing me as I'm on top of these mountains. But it was so much fun. So my big personal goal for the year is to do more things like that, more new experiences that are outside my comfort zone and make me feel really proud of myself.
Now, Nikki, promise me that you took a cell phone with you.
Oh yeah. Of course. Of course. I needed it for my itinerary that ChatGPT put together for me.
I've seen way too many of those movies where like people get lost in the national park and then they end up having to like chop off their arm or something.
I ended the day with just as many appendages as I started with.
Congratulations.
And fortunately, my the GPS on the phone worked most of the day.
Awesome. So, how will we balance our day jobs, our creative work, and our personal life in 2025?
That is a really good question.
All right. Well, why don't we do a little bit of coaching with each other on steps that can help us get there?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, Nikki, since habits is your word of the year, what's one habit you want to build this year that will support your goals?
Oh man, there are so many specific habits I want to build, but I'm going to say one that will help with all the others, and that's to push through my heavy resistance that pops up when I set out to do something that I plan to do and even want to do, but maybe don't necessarily want to do in the moment. I tend to push things off and leave future Nikki scrambling. So the new habit I want to build is fighting through that resistance and do things when I plan to do them.
Okay, that actually reminds me a lot of that Mel Robbins book called The 5-Second Rule. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we've talked about it before, but explain it.
Yeah, so her thing was that she was in a situation in her life where things were not going well, and she didn't like even want to get up out of bed in the morning. And so she got this flash in her brain of like a space shuttle taking off, going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. So she started doing this thing where she would count backwards from 5 to 1. And when she hit 1, she would go do whatever the thing was that she was resisting doing. Right?
Okay.
Maybe you need a little more 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in your life, Nikki.
I can absolutely give that a try. The other thing I'm thinking of is, if I have something blocked off on my calendar for 30 minutes or an hour or even like a 2-hour focus session and I'm having trouble getting started, just say, okay, you just have to do one thing. You just have to do like 5 minutes of it, and just get started. And, what you usually find is once you get started, you're fine. You get into it and you end up working on it way longer than you thought you would.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit about how we talked about having timers too, like the little visual timers and stuff. If you set it for 10 or 15 minutes, you're going to do more than 10 or 15 minutes. It's
Yep.
just the getting started part that's hard, right?
Yep. So we'll give that a try.
Okay.
So what about you, Laura?
I can never choose just one. So
Of course.
for my work life, I want to shut down by 7 p.m. every night and spend time towards my personal and creative business goals.
Okay. That sounds great.
That's like huge for me because, I start at 8. If I could shut down at 7, that would be massive because I don't go to bed till, later in the evening. So that would give me plenty
That's
of time.
an 11-hour workday, Laura.
That's like not big at all for me.
Maybe you should try for 10 hours.
Yeah, I don't know if that's possible.
All right. Well, we'll see.
Did I mention I also need to get therapy this year?
No, but that's not a terrible idea for all of us.
All right. So number 2 is I want to send out at least one pitch email per week to companies that I want to license with once I have my collection complete.
Okay.
And number 3 is I want to move my body every day somehow, like whatever it is. That's more than today, which is largely shifting from my bed to my desk to my couch to my studio to my bed again.
Hey, but when you add that up, that's probably a couple 100 feet in a day.
I think I got at least 200 steps in there.
My entire bus is on the inside is only 26 feet long.
Yeah, I think I don't walk much, but I think you have more limited ability to walk in your home than I do in mine. So
for sure. All right. So what's a challenge that you can anticipate and what can you do to prepare for it?
Well, because I always battle with time, I think some of that is just setting boundaries, but it's also planning out my big deliverables this year and ensuring that I don't just pile a whole bunch of goals or work on top of each other, to kind of space out those deadlines into something that's reasonable. What about you, Nikki?
Well, obviously, that resistance that I'm going to be pushing through is a challenge. So I know I'm going to need to psych myself up for it and know that doing things now rather than pushing them off for later is a gift I can give to my future self.
Yeah, for sure. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off.
Go! Okay, Laura, what will success look like for you at the end of 2025?
Okay, so it's going to be great to look back at a completed collection, an engaged email list, a licensing deal, a launched song, a successful podcast, and, a healthy body. To me, success is all about the feeling. I want to feel proud of the steps that I've taken to move the dial and get out of my comfort zone. And I want to feel excited and joyful about where I'm at and what is to come. After all, it's more about the journey than the end result, right?
It really needs to be.
Okay, so what about you, Nikki? What does your success look like?
Okay, for me, success will be looking back and hopefully seeing that I formed a good number of the habits that I wanted to. And so that the things that I've historically avoided, even though I do really want to do them, are now things that I do on a regular basis.
Nice.
So how will we celebrate milestones along the way?
Well, Nikki, you and I need to find a way to celebrate somewhere together this year.
Yes, we do.
But I'll be celebrating all along the way with small things like when I have a creative business win, allowing myself to spend time just creating for creating's sake with no business purpose in mind, by spending time with family and friends, by having the occasional massage or pedicure, or just by having the utter pleasure, at least it is for me, of a weekend with nothing on the agenda at all.
That sounds great. And we definitely need to celebrate together in person somewhere. Maybe you'll fly out and meet me somewhere along my travels.
Yeah. We'll get that cruise ship going to someplace exotic.
Yeah. We'll just take the bus across the ocean. Anyway, celebrating milestones along the way is something I've never really done much of. Like many of us, I just tend to move right on to the next thing without celebrating the wins along the way. So one of the habits that I want to cultivate this year is journaling more on a regular basis. I do it very sporadically.
Right.
And I want to document my travels. So I think one way that I might celebrate my wins is to allow myself the time to sit and think and write about them so that
Mm-hmm.
I take the time to really experience them rather than just rushing on to the next thing.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one of the tools I've used also in the past is one of those 5-year journals. Have you ever seen those?
Yep.
And it's just like a few lines a day. So it's not like a big, huge thing that you have to write that takes forever. But that's something I've gotten away from, that I want to start that practice again, because it's really interesting when you hit year 2 to look back on year 1 or year 3 or year 4 to say, what was I doing on this day 3 years ago? And then taking the time to celebrate as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's actually an app that's similar called Day One.
Okay.
And it just has like a little place for you to write about that day, but it also will let you, like, it'll pull in photos that you've taken that day, and, it can do things like track like your location that day. So it does a little bit more than just, you write about it, but it also pulls things in. And so of course I've downloaded that, and, I looked back, I downloaded it and forgot that I had used it before, and looked back and saw, oh, I used this like 5 years ago for maybe 3 days.
I see a little theme going on here, Nikki.
Lack of consistency.
That's okay. I see myself in it, so it's all good.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can have a second word of the year, and it'll be consistency.
Or how about accountability?
Accountability. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So what are our key takeaways, Nikki?
All right. Well, I think it's very important to reflect on the past year, to celebrate your wins like we're talking about, acknowledge challenges, and find lessons that we can take into the new year.
Yeah.
And consider choosing a word of the year to provide focus and intention for your goals and priorities. And set some clear goals. Define what you want to achieve in both your creative work and your personal life. And if you have a podcast, your podcast.
Don't forget about the podcast.
For sure. And focus on sustainable habits, and know that small, consistent changes can lead to big progress over time.
Right. And finally, celebrate milestones. Take the time to recognize and reward your progress so you can stay motivated and inspired throughout the year.
Absolutely.
Now it's your turn. Hop in the Facebook group and let us know what your word of the year is and what your first actionable step for the new year will be.
And to help you plan your upcoming year, we've created a special download for you. Go to startistsociety.com/planning to read today's show notes and download a free copy of your Startist Society planning worksheet.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Wait, Laura, what are we talking about next episode?
Well, Nikki, the next one is about one of my favorite taboo topics. It's all about managing your money and finances with your business and life, which actually reminds me, it's tax time. So be sure to check out the interview we did in episode number 17 with Hannah Cole on taxes for artists for some great tips. We'll see you soon.